Well, hello there, you beautiful, beautiful, amazing, wonderful people. Guess what? It's Wednesday, and you know what Wednesday is? It's the midweek hump, and we all love a midweek hump. You're looking absolutely amazing, and I'm going to get straight into the meat and potatoes, because today we're going to be talking about a couple of things. Later on, we're going to be looking at some Brian Kohberger topless shots. Boom! I know that there's going to be some people who can't wait to see that. One of them being Ashley Bamfield. She loves Brian. And in this video, we're talking about the new claims that have come out that are talking about Brian Kohberger potentially stalking some students prior to the murders over at 1122 King Road. And we're going to talk in a little bit, like at the end of this bit, about why that could be significant and what's bizarre about it. But let's look at what we're talking about first of all. First of all, let's just see this. This is obviously Butfield herself covering it, which we'll just briefly listen to this.
Reports from the Idaho State Police obtained by People magazine show two women suspected Brian Kohberger was stalking them at Washington State University right before the murders at 11:20.
And what you've got to think here is when it says that they believe that Brian Kohberger was stalking them before, I'm guessing that they didn't know who Brian was prior to it. And this is why this is important, isn't it? Because it's almost like you've got to think to yourself, hold on a second. So you've got people who were saying that they were being stalked. And I'll show you the article in a second because it gets quite bad. It does get quite bad. And you think to yourself, so if they knew who this individual was, they were familiar with him, and these things were happening, did they go to law enforcement first, or did they just think, oh, fuck it, we'll just ignore it, it's all right? And then you go down that route of that see something, say something situation, which people can't seem to get through the thick heads, however much you try and ram that home. And then you think to yourself, okay, so is this just a ploy? Now that Brian Kohberger's locked up and there's still some doubt, is this now about trying to sort of fill in the gaps and try and solidify what they're trying to say? They always try to make out that Brian Kohberger was a stalker, even though in the courtroom itself they kind of had to pull back on that. And even Bill Thompson, in the aftermath of the plea deal, would turn around and almost say, well, we don't have any proof that he was stalking. We got no evidence of him going near the property. We got no proof that he actually went in the fucking property. Do you know what I mean? But this stalking has always been a key element of how they pushed this story out in the PCA originally, and you kind of wonder whether that's now coming full circle and they understand that there's a big question. There's a big question. How can someone kill people if they've got literally no connection to them whatsoever? Well, it's got to be that he was stalking them. It's got to be that there was a connection. We just couldn't prove that connection. So is this, again, like I say, just a ruse to try to fill in the blanks? Or did someone fuck up? And hold on, let's stick a pin there. Let's just listen to the rest of this for a second.
King Road in Moscow. Kohberger was a PhD candidate in that criminology department at that school. And the women said he would make daily visits to see them at work. And then he'd make unexpected, uninvited, and highly unwelcome visits to their homes. One of the women was an employee at the university bookstore. She said Brian Kohberger seemed to have researched her, knowing personal details that she'd never shared, including her name and the...
He knew personal details that she'd never shared. Like her name. What, she'd never shared it with anyone? No one knew her name. She was just known as Girl at Bookshop. It's not hard to find out people's names, is it? When you're at a university. I don't know. But as this goes on, it would seem to suggest that they knew who this individual was. They knew. And again, I have to resort to my old, and this ain't about trying to fucking protect a killer before the dickheads in comments go on. It's about trying to understand what actually happened here. Was there a massive, massive failing that could have prevented the Idaho 4 killings? Or, again, as aforementioned, is this purely now about putting the boot into somebody who has now been convicted and they can't really do anything? Do you know what I mean? It's now that this is over with. So now we can say what we want to say, do what we want to do, and there's no real repercussions to it. Who knows? But
hours that she'd worked. She further said in August or September of 2022, and remember, that is just months before the quadruple murders, she was changing in her bedroom at home when someone knocked on her window. She called for her husband, and the person...
So I'm guessing that she must have lived in a bungalow, you know, like one of those single level properties. Could you imagine if she was like in a normal house with an upstairs? What, he fucking scale a tree, reaching across. Dunk, dunk, dunk. It's Brian! It's Brian from work. I don't know your name because you haven't ever shared it. But...
ran
creepy
off.
though.
Another time, she heard someone on her porch. Her husband came home right away, and she says a white car drove off moments later. And we all know by now that Kohberger drove that infamous white Hyundai Elantra.
So, right. So let's just stick a pin in. So you get the picture. And it was originally, just to show you the article that she's talking about, it was here. It was the People. Two college students say they were stalked by Brian Kohberger and later told police that a stranger was spying on them at home. And when it says later told police, I'm wondering whether that this was in the aftermath of the murders themselves, that they then went to law enforcement. It's not very clear as to whether they'd gone to the cops prior to the murders to say that, look, this fucking weird shit's going on at our house. We've had someone in a white car turn up. I've been changed in my bedroom and I've had someone knocking on the window. I've got this lunatic at work turning up. Because you kind of have to ask the question, don't you? And that is, if you was in a situation where you was at work and this individual was doing this, coming in and knew stuff about you, and you thought, how the fuck does he know stuff about me? And I know, all jokes aside, I know it's funny and I am a funny fucker, but the serious nature of it is, if you have got a situation like this where you do feel that you're being stalked, you have got someone coming up, they do know stuff about you that no one else knows, and then you're at home and this individual is coming to your house, someone is driving off, you're having your windows knocked on, do you not go to law enforcement? And if they did go to law enforcement and raise it, how serious was that taken? And is this like, the video I did on the family channel yesterday, my second channel. And I told you about a story where law enforcement have got to go out to these children who are being abused and put in cages, and the cops don't want to do anything about it. They actually basically threaten the kids to stay in that scenario. And you think, what has to happen for action to be taken? It's like the old Lee Evans skit. For those of you who don't know who Lee Evans is, he's a UK comic, and he'd done a skit that was about calling the police when he felt that his house was being broken into, and they went, well, we can't do anything. They ain't done nothing yet. And he went, well, what if they kill me? And they said, well, you definitely give us a ring. And that's all jokes aside. It's no different than the Majorge and Alan Kayla case. So Majorge and Alan Kayla, again in Idaho, there's a family with a weirdo kid who is doing stuff that he shouldn't be doing. This guy goes to cops multiple times and they fuck him off. And eventually that ends up with Majorge and Alan Kayla taking matters into his own hands, albeit he went a little bit excessive and obviously eliminated the entire family. But point being, how many times can law enforcement, who are supposed to be protect and serve and all that jazz, how often is it that you find that law enforcement could have done something to prevent it and they don't prevent it? In some instances, they exacerbate the situation and put it into the scenario that you find it in the end. And you have to question how They're the part that they play in it. And does the part that they play in these things then later influence the way that they handle things? Case in point being Brent Kopacker. What the fucking hell really happened in the Brent Kopacker case? Was he really holding people hostage? Did he really have to be executed by SWAT? Did he have anything to do with the Idaho 4 case on the peripheral? And look, I appreciate that there's no real evidence to support that, and there's a lot of speculation out there, but we've got a crime that seems to have been committed by someone who is incredibly skilled. Brian Kohberger looks about as skilled as Sid the Sloth from fucking Ice Age, and when you see him later with his top off, he even more looks like Sid the Sloth. But look, point being, you've got someone who seemed to be skilled. You've heard the injuries. You've listened to how these injuries were: subclavian artery severance, and the fact that they weren't just random cuts on Ethan Chapin. Ethan Chapin was strategically incapacitated. And again, a subclavian artery sever. This is a skilled person. This is someone who is incredibly skilled. And the contradiction there is then, is this the same person who could do these injuries and be this skilled, would take a knife sheath when it's not even needed, or they don't attach it to them? They drive their own fucking car around the block getting caught on every single camera possible. They leave an eyewitness, and do you know what I mean? Make the catalogue of errors that they make, or what we're led to believe were made. But yeah, so they're pushing this stalker narrative, and I want you to let me know down below. What do you think? Is this now, as aforementioned, this is now just about trying to fill in the gaps, to cross the I's, dot the T's, to leave people with this, okay, Brian Kohberger was clearly stalking individuals prior to this, and then he picked who he was going to kill. And you think to yourself, if he was already stalking people, and these individuals, and he was going right up to their house, he was knocking on the window, he knew who they were, why didn't he kill them? Why didn't he kill them? Why did he end up going to a house that he has absolutely no fucking connection to whatsoever? The house literally had 5 cars sitting outside it, party house, football, cops everywhere, people walking around everywhere outside. Yeah, this is the house he chose. They've literally taken a delivery in for food while he's there. While he's literally in the vicinity, there is someone delivering food to a property with fucking a multitude of cars out, and he thinks, oh no, I'll go and do that one. That looks like a good one to me, on his own, looking like Sid the Sloth. We've seen him. He's not a fucking dominator. And when you see these videos later on, you're going to see that the description what Dylan Mortensen gives of, not, athletic or whatever she said, he looks about as athletic as a string bean. A noodle. He looks like a noodle. And that's no disrespect. I'm just saying. Love you all. I'll catch you all later on. Mwah.